have a sip of tea real quick. Let's see. Oh my God. I see Chris here. Hello, everyone. Ooh, hot tea, hot tea. Hi, Abby. Thanks for joining. All right. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. All right. So, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining tonight. So, welcome back to Vampire Book Club with me, the Hex Baby. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jules, and every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, we read a vampire novel for about 2 hours. Currently, we are reading Dracula by Bram Stoker per polling request. So, if you are interested in like podcast style lives or audiobooks, or someone reads to you and makes some quirky commentary, I'm your girl. This is the live for you. So I'm going to wait until some people are here. I'm going to get my moderator set up here. Hang on one sec. Okay, add as moderator. Perfect. All right, we got him in. All right, so thank you so much for being here. To everyone who's watching this back on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. This will always be uploaded on YouTube. Some of these stories I will not be able to upload due to copyright reasons. Dracula is a story that's over 100 years old, so we are outside of the copyright where I can actually read it, and it has public access, so I can actually read it to you all. When we do books like Interview with the Vampire and things like that, I may not be able to read it and record it and upload it. I'm going to have to check and see what the legalities are behind that. We don't know. So we'll check and see. But, so if you would like to read along tonight, we're starting on chapter 4. We're probably going to get through, I'm hoping, 2 chapters. It would be nice if we can get through 3, but, yes. So, I think, let's see, if you're reading along in the modern version, we should be starting on page 59. Are you a vampire? I don't know. Do you think I am? But yeah, so if you want to read along, we're starting on page 59. It is chapter 4. I'm going to have a little sip of tea real quick. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you are ready to start reading. I'm just going to mute myself so you don't hear me sipping my tea. One moment. All right. All right, is everybody ready? Let's party. Okay, hang on one sec. I'm going to just pin this from the moderator. Thank you, darling. Okay, here we go. So, chapter 4, Jonathan Harker's journal continued. I woke in my own bed. If it be that I had not dreamt, the Count must have carried me here. I tried to satisfy myself on the subject, but could not arrive at any unquestionable result. To be sure, there were certain small evidences, such as that my clothes were folded and laid by in a manner which was not my habit. Thank you so much for buying a badge. I really appreciate you. My watch was still unwound, and I am rigorously accustomed to wind it the last night before going to bed, and many such details. But these things are no proof, for they may have been evidence that my mind was not as usual, and, for some cause or another, I had certainly been much upset. I must watch for proof. Of one thing I am glad, if it was that the Count carried me here and undressed me, he must have been hurried in his task, for my pockets are intact. I am sure this diary would have been a mystery to him, which he would not have brooked. He would have taken or destroyed it. As I look around this room, although it has been to me so full of fear, it is now a sort of sanctuary, for nothing can be more dreadful than those awful women who are, waiting to suck my blood. Dun, 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 dun. 18th May. I have been down to look at the room again in daylight, for I must know the truth. When I got to the doorway at the top of the stairs, I found it closed. It had been so forcibly driven against the jamb, the part of the woodwork was splintered. or splintered, excuse me. I could see that the bolt of the lock had been shot, but the door is fastened from the inside. I fear it was no dream and must act on this surmise. Sorry. The page was stuck together. 19th May. I am surely in the toils. Last night the Count asked me in the suavest tones to write 3 letters, one saying that my work here was nearly done, and that I should start for home within a few days. Another, I was starting on the next morning from the time of the letter, and the third, that I had left the castle and arrived at Bistritz. I would fain have rebelled, but felt that in the present state of things it would be madness to quarrel openly with the Count, whilst I am so absolutely in his power, and to refuse would be to excite his suspicion and to arouse his anger. He knows that I know too much, and that I must not live, lest I be dangerous to him. My only chance is to prolong my opportunities. Something may occur which will give me a chance to escape. I saw in his eyes something of that gathering wrath which was manifest when he hurled that fair-haired woman from him. He explained to me that posts were few and uncertain, and that my writing now would ensure ease of mind to my friends, and he assured me that with so much impressiveness that he would countermand the later letters, which would be held over at Bistritz until due time, in case chance would admit of my prolonging my stay, that to oppose him would have been to create new suspicion. I therefore pretended to fall in with his views, and asked him what dates I should put on the letters. He calculated a minute, and then said, "The first should be 12th June, the second 19th June, and the third 29th June. I now know the span of my life. God help me." 28th May. There is a chance of escape, or at any rate of being able to send word home. A band of Zgani have come to the castle and are encamped in the courtyard. These Zgani are gypsies. I have notes of them in my book. They are peculiar to this part of the world, though allied to the ordinary Romanis, I guess is the appropriate word. I don't want to keep saying that word. Romanis of the world over. There are thousands of them in Hungary and Transylvania who are almost outside all law. They attach themselves as a rule to some great noble or boyar, and call themselves by his name. They are fearless and without religion, save superstition, and they talk only their own varieties of the Romani tongue. I shall write some letters home, and shall try to get them to have them posted. I have already spoken to them through my window to begin acquaintanceship. They took their hats off and made obeisance and many signs, which, however, I could not understand any more than I could their spoken language. Hi, thank you. Hermione's, that's what I figured, yes. So I'm just going to, if I see that word, I will refer to the word as Romani, okay? So if you're reading along, that is why. I have written the letters. Mina's is in shorthand, and I simply ask Mr. Hawkins to communicate with her. To her I have explained my situation, but without the horrors which I may only surmise. It would shock and frighten her to death were I to expose my heart to her. Should the letters not carry, then the Count shall not yet know my secret or the extent of my knowledge. I have given the letters. I threw them through the bars of my window with a gold piece, and made what signs I could to have them posted. The man who took them pressed them to his heart and bowed, and then put them in his cap. I could do no more. I stole back to the study and began to read. As the Count did not come in, I have written here. The Count has come. He sat down beside me and said in his smoothest voice as he opened 2 letters, "The Zgani has given me these, of which, though I know not whence they come, I shall, of course, take care. See." He must have looked at it. "One is from you, and to my friend Peter Hawkins. The other—" Here he caught sight of the strange symbols as he opened the envelope, and the dark look came into his face, and his eyes blazed wickedly. The other is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. Well, so it cannot matter to us." And he calmly held the letter and envelope into the flame of the lamp till they were consumed. Then he went on. "The letter to Hawkins that I shall, of course, send on, since it is yours. Your letters are sacred to me. Your pardon, my friend, that unknowingly I did break the seal. Will you not cover it again?" He held out the letter to me, and with a courteous bow handed me a clean envelope. I could only redirect it and hand it to him in silence. When he went out of the room I could hear the key turn softly. A minute later I went over and tried it, and the door was locked. When an hour or two after the Count came quietly into the room, his coming wakened me, for I had gone to sleep on the sofa. He was very courteous and very cheery in his manner, and seeing that I had been sleeping, he said, "So, my friend, you are tired. Get to bed. There is the surest rest. I may not have the pleasure of talk tonight, since there are many labors to me, but you will sleep, I pray." I passed to my room and went to bed, and, strange to say, slept without dreaming. Despair has its own calms. 31st May. This morning when I woke, I thought I would provide myself with some papers and envelopes from my bag and keep them in my pocket, so that I might write in case I should get an opportunity. But again a surprise, again a shock. Every scrap of paper was gone, and with it all my notes, my memoranda relating to railways and travel, my letter of credit, in fact, all that might be useful to me were I once outside this castle. I sat and pondered a while, and then some thought occurred to me, and I made search of my portmanteau, and in the wardrobe where I had placed my clothes. The suit in which I had travelled was gone, and also my overcoat and rug. I could find no trace of them anywhere. This looked like some new scheme of villainy. 17th June. This morning, as I was sitting on the edge of my bed, cudgelling my brains, I heard without a crackling of whips and pounding and scraping of horses' feet up the rocky path beyond the courtyard. With joy I hurried to the window and saw drive into the yard 2 great later wagons, each drawn by 8 sturdy horses, and at the head of each pair a Slavic, with his wide hat, great nail-studded belt, dirty sheepskin, and high boots. They had also their long staves in hand. I ran to the door, intending to descend and try and join them through the main hall, as I thought that way might be opened for them. Again a shock. My door was fastened on the outside. My son just finished reading this. I love this book. This is one of my favorite books ever, so I'm very glad everyone voted to read this one this time. Then I ran to the window and cried to them. They looked up at me stupidly and pointed, but just then the hetman of the Zgani came out, and seeing them pointing to my window, said something at which they laughed. Let's see, is Canterbury Tales goth? Canterbury Tales, I suppose it would be gothic, if you want to describe it as such, because I feel like gothic extends to literature as well as music and fashion too. Okay. Henceforth, no effort of mine, no piteous cry or agonized entreaty would make them even look at me. They resolutely turned away. The Lita wagons contained great square boxes with handles of thick rope. These were evidently empty by the ease which the Slavics handled them, and by their resonance as they were roughly moved. When they were all unloaded and packed in a great heap in one corner of the yard, the Slavics were given some money by the Zgani, and spitting on it for luck, lazily went each to his horse's head. Shortly afterwards I heard the cracking of their whips die away in the distance. Yeah, I would say maybe like it falls into the romantic goth literature category, if you will. 24th June, before morning. Last night the Count left me early and locked himself into his own room. As soon as I dared, I ran up the winding stair and looked out of the window, which opened south. I thought I would watch for the Count, for there is something going on. The Zgani are quartered somewhere in the castle, and are doing work of some kind. I know it, for now and then I hear a far-away muffled sound as of mattock and spade, and, whatever it is, it must be the end of some ruthless villainy. I had been at the window somewhat less than half an hour when I saw something coming out of the Count's window. I drew back and watched carefully, and saw the whole man emerge. It was a new shock to me to find that he had on the suit of clothes which I had worn whilst travelling here, and slung over his shoulder the terrible bag which I had seen the women take away. There could be no doubt as to his quest, and in my garb too. This, then, is his new scheme of evil, that he will allow others to see me as they think, so that he may both leave evidence that I have been seen in the towns or villages posting my own letters, and that any wickedness which he may do shall be by the local people attributed to me. Horrible! It makes me rage to think that this can go on, and whilst I am shut up here, a veritable prisoner, but without the protection of the law, which is even a criminal's right and consolation. I thought I would watch for the Count's return, and for a long time sat doggedly at the window. Then I began to notice that there were some quaint little specks floating in the rays of the moonlight. They were like the tiniest grains of dust, and they whirled round and gathered in clutters in a nebulous sort of way. I watched them with a sense of soothing, and a sort of calm stole over me. I leaned back in the embrasure of the chair, comfortable position, so that I love you, Heather, so that I could enjoy more fully the aerial gambling. Something made me start up. A low, piteous howling of dogs somewhere far below in the valley, which was hidden from my sight. Louder it seemed to ring in my ears, and the floating motes of dust to take new shapes to the sound as they danced in the moonlight. Heather, you didn't have to do that. Thank you so much for sending a badge. I really appreciate it. I love you. I felt myself struggling to awake to some call of my instincts. Nay, my very soul was struggling, and my half-remembered sensibilities were striving to answer the call. I was becoming hypnotized. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Quicker and quicker danced the dust. The moonbeams seemed to quiver as they went by me into the mass of gloom beyond. More and more they gathered till they seemed to take dim phantom shapes. And then I started, broad awake in full possession of my senses, and ran screaming from the place. The phantom shapes which were becoming gradually materialized from the moonbeams were those 3 ghostly women to whom I was doomed. I fled and felt somewhat safer in my own room, where there was no moonlight, and where the lamp was burning brightly. When a couple of hours had passed, I heard something stirring in the Count's room, something like a sharp wail quickly suppressed, and then there was silence, deep, awful silence, which chilled me. With a beating heart I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison, and could do nothing. I sat down and simply cried. As I sat, I heard a sound in the courtyard without, the agonized cry of a woman. I rushed to the window, and throwing it up, peered between the bars. There, indeed, was a woman with dishevelled hair, holding her hands over her heart as one distressed with running. She was leaning against the corner of the gateway. When she saw my face at the window, she threw herself forward and shouted in a voice laden with menace. "Monster, give me my child!" She threw herself on her knees, and raising her hands cried the same words in tones which wrung my heart. Then she tore her hair and beat her breast, and abandoned herself to all violences of extravagant emotion. Finally she threw herself forward, and though I could not see her face, I could hear the beating of her naked hands against the door. Somewhere high overhead, probably on the tower, I heard the voice of the Count calling in his harsh metallic whisper. His call seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling of wolves. Before many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured like a pent-up dam when liberated through the wide entrance into the courtyard. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of the wolves was but short. Before long they streamed away singly, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I knew now what had become of her child, and she was better dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful thrall of night and gloom and fear? What can he do? 25th June morning. No man knows till he has suffered from the night how sweet and dear to his heart the eye of the morning can be. When the sun grew so high this morning that it struck the top of the great gateway opposite my window, the high spot which it touched seemed to me as if the dove from the ark had lighted there. My fear fell from me as if it had been a vaporous garment which dissolved in the warmth. I must take action of some sort whilst the courage of the day is upon me. Last night one of my post-dated letters went to post. The first of that fatal series which is to blot out the very traces of my existence from this earth. Let me not think of it. Action. It has always been a night time that I have been threatened, or in some way in danger or in fear. I have not yet seen the Count in the daylight. Can it be that he sleeps when others wake, that he may be awake whilst they sleep? If I could only get into his room. But there is no possible way. The door is always locked. No way for me. Yes, there is a way, if one dares to take it. Where his body has gone, why may not another body go? I have seen himself crawl from his window. Why should I not imitate him, and go in by his window? By chances. The chances are desperate, but any need is more desperate still. I shall risk it. At the worst it can be only death, and a man's death is not a calf's, and the dreaded hereafter may still be open to me. God help me in my task. Goodbye, Mina, if I fail, goodbye. My faithful friend and second father, goodbye. All, and last of all, Mina. Same day, later. I have made the effort, and God helping me, have come safely back to this room. I must put down every detail in order. I went whilst my courage was fresh straight to the window on the south side, and at once got outside on the narrow ledge of stone which runs around the building on this side. The stones were big and roughly cut, and the mortar had by process of time been washed away between them. I took off my boots and ventured out on the desperate way. I looked down once so as to make sure that a sudden glimpse of the awful depth would not overcome me, but after that kept my eyes away from it. I know pretty well the direction and distance of the Count's window, and made for it as well as I could, having regard to... the opportunities available. I did not feel dizzy. I suppose I was too excited, and the time seemed ridiculously short till I found myself standing on the window-sill and trying to raise up the sash. I was filled with agitation, however, when I bent down and slid feet foremost in through the window. Then I looked around for the Count, but with surprise and gladness made a discovery. The room was empty. It was barely furnished with odd things which seemed to have never been used. The furniture was something the same... Hang on one second. I'm having a hard time. I cannot see here. I'm going to move this. One moment. I want to move the wire so I don't knock into it. There we go. That's better. The room was empty. It was barely furnished with odd things which seemed to have never been used. The furniture was something the same style as that in the south rooms, and was covered with dust. I looked for the key, but it was not in the lock, and I could not find it anywhere. The only thing I found was a great heap of gold in one corner, gold of all kinds, Roman and British and Austrian and Hungarian and Greek and Turkish money, covered with a film of dust, as though it had lain long in the ground. None of it, that I noticed, was less than 300 years old. There also was chains and ornaments, some jeweled, but all of them old and stained. At one corner of the room was a heavy door. I tried it, for since I could not find the key of the room, or the key of the outer door, which was the main object of my search, I must make further examination, or all my efforts would be in vain. It was open and led through a stone passage to a circular stairway, which went steeply down. I descended, minding carefully where I went, for the stairs were dark, being only lit by loopholes in the heavy masonry. At the bottom there was a dark, tunnel-like passage through which came a deathly, sickly odor, the odor of old earth newly turned. As I went through the passage, the smell grew closer and heavier. At last I pulled open a heavy door which stood ajar, and found myself in an old, ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The roof was broken, and in 2 places were steps leading to vaults. But the ground had recently been dug over, and the earth placed in great wooden boxes, manifestly those which had been brought by the Slavics. There was nobody about, and I made search for any further outlet, but there was none. Then I went over every inch of the ground so as to not lose a chance. I went down even into the vaults, where the dim light struggled, although to do so was a dread to my very soul. Into 2 of these I went, but saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust. In the 3rd, however, I made a discovery. There, in one of the great boxes, of which were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth lay the Count. He was either dead or asleep, I could not say which, for his eyes were open and stony, but without the glassiness of death, and the cheeks had the warmth of life through all their pallor, and his lips were as red as ever. But there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of the heart. I bent over him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthy smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box was its cover, pierced with holes here and there. I thought he might have the keys on him, but when I went to search I saw the dead eyes, and in them, dead though they were, such a look of hate, though unconscious of me or my presence, that I fled from the place, and leaving the Count's room by the window, crawled again up the castle wall. Regaining my own chamber, I threw myself panting upon the bed and tried to think. 29th June. Today is the date of my last letter, and the Count has taken steps to prove that it was genuine, for again I saw him leave the castle by the same window and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, lizard fashion, I wished I had a gun or some lethal weapon, that I might destroy him, but I fear that no weapon wrought alone by man's hand would have any effect on him. I dared not to wait for his return, for I feared to see those weird sisters. I came back to the library and read there till I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count, who looked at me as grimly as a man could, as he said, "To-morrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England, I to some work which may have such an end that we may never meet. Your letter home has been dispatched. To-morrow I shall not be here, but all shall be ready for your journey. In the morning come the Zgani, who have some labours of their own here, and also some Slavics. When they have gone, my carriage shall come for you, and shall bear you to the Borgo Pass to meet the diligence from Bukovnia to Bistritz. But I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula. I bet you would." I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. Sincerity! It seems like a profanation of the word to write in the connection with such a monster, so I asked him point blank, "Why may I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away on a mission." "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled, with such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick behind his smoothness. He said, "And your baggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time." The Count stood up and said, with a sweet courtesy which made me rub my eyes, it seemed so real, "You English have a saying which is close to my heart, for its spirit is that which rules our boyars. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest." "Come with me, my dear young friend. Not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad am I at your going, and that you suddenly desire it. Come." With a stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs, along the hall. Suddenly he stopped. "Hark!" Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seems to leap under the baton of the conductor. After a pause of a moment, he proceeded in his stately way to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my intense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspiciously I looked all around, but could see no key of any kind. As the door began to open, the howling of the wolves without grew... The wolves without... Okay, that is worded correctly, sorry. The howling of the wolves without grew louder and angrier, their red jaws with champing teeth, and their blunt-clawed feet, as they leapt, came in through the opening door. I knew then that to struggle at the moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me that this might be the moment, and the means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea great enough for the Count, and the last chance I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait till morning!" and covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of bitter disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count drew the door shut, and the great bolts changed and echoed through the hall as they shot back into their places. That was his plan all along. In silence we returned to the library, and after a minute or two I went to my own room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me, with a red light of triumph in his eyes, and with a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. When I was in my room and about to lie down, I thought I heard a whispering in my door. I went to it softly and listened. Unless my ears deceive me, I heard the voice of the Count. "Back, back to your own place. Your time is not yet come. Wait, have patience. Tomorrow night is yours." There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in a rage I threw open the door and saw without the three terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. It is then so near the end? Tomorrow, Lord help me and those to whom I am dear. So tomorrow is his untimely parting. You know, I always found it very funny that even back in the late 1800s, Bram described Dracula as so saucy, him saying, "The last I saw of Count Dracula was him kissing his hand to me." Like that, you know what I mean? Like, wow, saucy. Very, very funny. All right. 30th June morning. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke, threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came, he should find me ready. At last I felt that subtle change in the air, and knew that the morning had come. Yeah, he's quite a drama queen, isn't he? I like it. I think that's why I've always really enjoyed the depictions of him in film, because he is so dramatic, and I don't know, I relate, I resonate with that. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke, threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came, he should find me ready. At last I felt that subtle change in the air, and knew that the morning had come. Then came the welcome cock-crow, and I felt that I was safe. With a glad heart I opened the door and ran down the hall. I had seen that the door was unlocked, and now escape was before me. With hands that trembled with eagerness, I unhooked the chains and threw back the massive bolts. But the door would not move. Despair seized me. I pulled and pulled at the door and shook it still. Massive as it was, it rattled in its casement. I could see the bolt shot. It had been locked after I left the Count. Devil. Then a wild desire took me to obtain the key at any risk, and I determined then and there to scale the wall again, and gain the Count's room. He might kill me, but death now seemed the happier choice of evils. Without a pause, I rushed up to the east window and scrambled down the wall as before into the Count's room. It was empty, but that was as I expected. I could not see a key anywhere, but the heap of gold remained. I went through the door in the corner and down the winding stair and along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now well enough where to find the monster that I sought. The great box was in the same place close against the wall, but the lid was laid on it, not fastened down, but with nails ready in their places to be hammered home. I knew I must search the body for the key, so I raised the lid and laid it back against the wall, and then I saw something which filled my very soul with horror. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth had been half restored, for the white hair and mustache were changed to dark iron gray, the cheeks were fuller, and the white skin seemed ruby red underneath. The mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled down from the corners of the mouth and ran down over the chin and neck. Even the deep burning eyes seemed set amongst swollen flesh, for the lids and pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature was simply gorged with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense in me revolted in the contact. But I had to search, or I was lost. The coming night might see my own body a banquet in a similar way to those horrid three. I felt all over the body, but no sign could I find of the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face which seemed to drive me mad. This was the being I was helping to transfer to London, where... Oh, pardon me, making loud noises. Hello. Where perhaps for centuries to come he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten on the helpless. Terrible. The very thought drove me mad. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workman had been using to fill the cases, and lifting it high, stuck with the edge downward into the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell upon me with all their blaze and basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned in my hand and glanced from the face, merely making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand across the box, and as I pulled it away, the flange of the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell over again, and hid the horrid thing from my sight. I don't know. I suppose, who are we asking? If you're asking us, is it really that terrible for this to happen? No. But to the average person, yes. The last glimpse I had was of the bloated face, blood-stained and fixed with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell. I thought and thought what should be my next move, but my brain seemed on fire, and I waited with a despairing feeling growing over me. As I waited, I heard in the distance a Romani song sung by merry voices coming closer, and through their song the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips. The Zgani and the Slavics of whom the Count had spoken were coming. With a last look around and at the box which contained the vile body, I ran from the place and gained the Count's room, determined to rush out at the moment the door should be opened. With strained ears I listened, and heard downstairs the grinding of the key in the great lock and the falling back of the heavy doors. There must have been some other means of entry, or someone had a key for one of the locked doors. Then there came the sound of many feet tramping and dying away in some passage which sent up a clanging echo. I turned to run down again towards the vault, where I might find the new entrance, but at the moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door to the winding stair blew to with a shock that set the dust from the lintels flying. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was hopelessly fast. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing around me closely. As I write, there is in the passage below a sound of many tramping feet and the crash of weights being set down heavily. Doubtless the boxes with their freight of earth. There was a sound of hammering. It is the box being nailed down. Now I can hear the heavy feet tramping again along the hall, with many other idle feet coming behind them. The door is shut. The chains rattle. There is a grinding of the key in the lock. I can hear the key withdrawn. Then another door opens and shuts. I hear the cracking of lock and bolt. Hark! In the courtyard and down the rocky way, the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips, and the chorus of the Zgani as they pass into the distance. I am alone in the castle with those horrible women. Faugh! Mina is a woman, and there is naught in common. They are devils of the pit. I shall not remain alone with them. I shall try to scale the castle wall farther than I have yet attempted. I shall try to take some of the gold with me, lest I want it later. I may find a way from this dreadful place, and then away for home. Away to the quickest and nearest train, away from the cursed spot, from this cursed land where the devil and his children still walk with earthly feet. At least God's mercy is better than that of those monsters, and the precipice is steep and high. As its foot a man may sleep. As a man. Goodbye all. Goodbye, Mina. Okay, we're going to start chapter 5 here. One moment. I just want to sip my tea before it gets cold. It's really funny. In the new Nosferatu film that came out, I thought, because it is an adaptation, an illegal adaptation of Dracula, I thought it was very interesting. These scenes in that film, it was so desperate and frightful and almost disturbing. I loved it. I love this part of the book. So I also wish, I know that the films were adapted from the novel in a way that made it more of a romance film. I wish there was a little bit more of it in the actual novel, but I do love the novel nonetheless. You do get that sauciness of Dracula in the actual novel too, but I'm a big fan. Let's see. I saw the Nosferatu film recently too and thought it's taken of the castle. Oh, yes. I thought the castle was fabulous. I thought all the scenes were great. When he was being chased by the wolves, fantastic. I loved it. Excellent. All right, chapter 5, okay? Letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westerner, 9th May. Sorry, I have a wispy hair that's getting in my face. Okay, here we go. My dearest Lucy, forgive my long delay in writing, but I have been simply overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. I have been working very hard lately because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies, and I have been practicing shorthand very assiduously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan, and if I can stenograph well enough, I can take down what he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, at which I am also practicing very hard. I like how the front of Orlok's coat almost resembles a ribcage. That's a great point. It does actually look like that too. It just was so grotesque. He looks so much like a corpse, and I was really a fan of that, big time. So I'm just a big fan of the new Nosferatu film. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest watching it. It was excellent. I loved it. I want to see it again. I can't wait for it to come out on Blu-ray. We continue. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal of his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't mean one of those 2 pages to the week with Sunday squeezed in a corner diaries, but a sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be such interest to other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions and trying to remember conversations. I am told that with a little practice one can remember all that goes on or that one hears said during the day. However, we shall see. I will tell you of my little plans when we meet. I have just a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. He is well and will be returning in about a week. I'm longing to hear all his news. It must be nice to see strange countries. I wonder if Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. There is the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye. Good evening. Thank you for joining. Your loving Mina. Tell me all the news when you write. You have not told me anything for a long time. I hear rumors, and especially of tall, handsome, curly-haired men. Letter, Lucy Westerner to Mina Murray. 17 Chatham Street, Wednesday. My dearest Mina, I must say you tax me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote you twice since we parted, and your last letter was only your second. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There is really nothing to interest you. Town is very pleasant just now, and we go a great deal to picture galleries for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was the one who was with me at the last pop. Someone was evidently telling stories. I love gossip. That was Mr. Holmwood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mamma get on very well together. They have so many things to talk about in common. We met some time ago a man that would just do for you if you were not already engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent party, being handsome, well-off, and of good birth. He is a doctor and very clever. Just fancy. He is only 9 and 20, and he has an immense lunatic asylum. Oh, I remember this is how she described him. Okay. And he has an immense lunatic asylum all under his own care. Mr. Holmwood introduced him to me, and he came here to see us, and often comes now. I think he is one of the most resolute men I ever saw, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a wonderful power he must have over his patients. He has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me, but I flatter myself he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that from my glass. Do you ever try to read your own face? I do, and I can tell you it is not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you have ever tried it. He says I afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think I do. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the new fashions. Dress is a bore. That is slang again, but never mind. Arthur says that every day. There, it is all out, Mina. We have told all our secrets to each other since we were children. We have slept together and eaten together and laughed and cried together, and now, though I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh, Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I am blushing as I write, for although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words, but, oh, Mina, I love him, there, that does me good. I wish I were with you, dear. Sitting by the fire, undressing as we used to sit, I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this even to you. I'm afraid to stop, or I should tear up the letter, but I do not want to stop, for I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and tell me all that you think about it. Mina, I must stop. Good night. Bless me in your prayers, and Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. P.S. I need not tell you this is a secret. Good night again. L. So funny. Letter, Lucy Westerner to Mina Murray. 24th May. My dearest Mina, thanks and thanks and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and to have your sympathy. My dear, it never rains but it pours. How true the old proverbs are. Here I am who shall be 20 in September. Oh, an old bag. And yet I have never had a proposal till today. Well, not a real proposal, and today I had 3. Just fancy, 3 proposals in one day. Isn't it awful? I feel sorry, really and truly sorry, for 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy that I don't know what to do with myself, and 3 proposals. But for goodness sake, don't tell any of the girls, or they would be getting all sorts of extravagant ideas and imagining themselves injured and... just babies. I know, 20? Good heavens. She's almost 20 years old. She has 3 proposals. And slighted if, in their very first day at home, they did not get 6 at least. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to settle down soon soberly into old married women, can despise their vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3, but you must keep it a secret, dear, from everyone except, of course, Jonathan. You will tell him, because I would, if I were in your place, certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything. Don't you think so, dear? And I must be fair. Men like women, certainly their wives to be quite as fair as they are. And women, I am afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear, member 1 came just before lunch. I told you of him, Dr. John Seward, the lunatic asylum man with the strong jaw and the good forehead. Is that a compliment? He was very cool outwardly, but was nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself as to all sorts of little things and remembered them, but he almost managed to sit down on his silk hat, which men don't generally do when they are cool, and then, when he wanted to appear at ease, he kept playing with a lancet in a way that made me nearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had known me so little, and what his life would be with me to help and cheer him. Hello. Thanks for joining, Kat. He was going to tell me how unhappy he would be if I did not care for him, but when he saw me cry, he said he was a brute and would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I could love him in time, and when I shook my head, his hands trembled, and then with some hesitation he asked me if I cared deeply already for anyone else. He put it very nicely, saying that he did not want to wring my confidence from me, but only to know, because if a woman's heart was free, a man might have hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone. I only told him that much, and then he stood up, and he looked very strong and very grave as he took both my hands in his, and said he hoped I would be happy, and that if I ever wanted a friend I must count him one of my best. Oh, Mina, dear, I can't help crying, and you must excuse this letter being all blotted. Being proposed to is all very nice and all that sort of thing, but it isn't at all a happy thing when you have to see a poor fellow whom you know loves you honestly going away and looking all broken-hearted, and to know that, no matter what he may say at the moment, you are passing out of his life. My dear, I must stop here at present. I feel so miserable, though I am so happy. Evening. Arthur has just gone, and I feel in better spirits than when I left off, so I can go on telling you about the day. Well, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He is such a nice fellow, an American from Texas, and he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible that he has been in so many places and had so many adventures. I sympathize with poor Desdemona when she had such a dangerous stream poured in her ear, even by another man. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from fears, and we marry them. I know now what I would do if I were a man and wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't. For there was Mr. Morris telling us his stories, and Arthur never told any, and yet, my dear, I am somewhat previous. Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. it seems that a man always does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't, for Arthur tried twice to make a chance, and I, helping him all I could, I am not ashamed to say it now. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers. Why so serious? I'm just reading. He does so to strangers or before them, for he is really well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out that it amused me to hear him talk American slang, and whenever I was present, and there was no one to be shocked. He said such funny things. I am afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. But this is a way slang has. I do not know myself if I shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, so I have never heard him use any as yet. Vampires are quite serious business, you're right. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me and looked as happy and jolly as he could, but I could see all the same that he was very nervous. He took my hand in his and said ever so sweetly, "Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixins of your little shoes, but I guess if you wait till you find a man that is, you will go join them 7 young women with the lamps when you quit. Won't you just hitch up alongside me and let us go down a long road together, driving in double harness?" What in God's name does that mean? Well, he did look so good-humored and so jolly that it didn't seem half so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Seward. So I said, as lightly as I could, that I did not know anything of hitching, and that I wasn't broken to harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner, and he hoped that if he had made a mistake in doing so on so grave, so momentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look so serious when he was saying it, and I couldn't help feeling a bit serious, too. I know, Mina, you will think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help feeling a sort of exultation that he was number 2 in one day. Could you imagine being proposed to by 3 people? Good heavens. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he began pouring out a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think that a man must be playful always, and never earnest, because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for he suddenly stopped and said with a sort of manly fervour that I could have loved him, for I have been free. Lucy, you are an honest-hearted girl, I know. I should not be here speaking to you as I am now, if I did not believe you clean grit tied through to the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anyone else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again, but will be, if you will let me, a very faithful friend. Something tells me Mina knows all about Lucy's flirting. I think you are correct. I think that she is well aware of her flirtatious manner. It is very cool that there is just a cowboy in Dracula. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's very, very cool. Aaron Taylor Johnson in Nosferatu would have been a great Quincy. I agree. You're right. He would have been an excellent Quincy. I always forget that he has a British accent, though. I think that's hysterical. In Nosferatu, I was like, wow, he's doing a really great British accent. And then I looked him up and I went, he's British. Oh. I had no idea. We continue. My dear Mina, why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them? Here was I, almost making fun of this great-hearted, true gentleman. I burst into tears. I am afraid, my dear, you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one, and I really felt very badly. I was surprised at how good his accent was, dear. I know. I was watching and I went, wow, he just sounds so British. And then I looked him up and I literally went, he's British? Like, I was in shock. I could not believe it. Couldn't believe it. Okay. Okay. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men or as many as want her and save all this trouble? But this is here. Heresy. I always get heresy is a word that I struggle with. I don't know why. I always want to say hearsay, even though it's spelled differently. Anyway, but this is heresy, and I must not say it. I'm glad to say that, though I was crying, I was able to look into Mr. Morris's brave eyes, and I told him out straight, yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me. I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he put out both hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and said in a hearty way, that's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning you than being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness well, he'd better look for it soon, or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rarer than a lover. It's more unselfish anyhow. My dear, I'm going to have a pretty lonely walk between this and kingdom come. Won't you give me one kiss? It'll be something to keep off the darkness now and then. You can, if you like, for that other good fellow. He must be a good fellow, my dear, and fine fellow, or you could not know him. Hasn't spoken yet. That quite won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him, and noble, too, to a rival, wasn't it? And he's so sad. And he's so sad. I feel like that's a typo. I think it's supposed to say, and he was so sad, so I leant over and kissed him. I always wanted her to end up with Quincy. Personally speaking, I thought that would have been a better pairing. I thought it would have been more exciting, but I think what it came down to was money. Am I wrong for saying that? That's why I also think Dr. Seward too was not a viable option because of money. So, anywho, he stood up with my 2 hands in his, and as he looked down into my face, I am afraid I was blushing very much. He said, little girl, I hold your hand and you kiss me, and if these things don't make us friends, nothing ever will. Thank you for your sweet honesty to me, and goodbye. He wrung my hand, and taking up his hat, went straight out of the room without looking back, without a tear or a quiver or a pause, and I am crying like a baby. Most definitely, it's Victorian times and you're marrying for class and status. Oh, 100%. Yes, absolutely. I mean, think of Lucy's parents were like quite well off, They were very well off. So I think that her marrying Dr. Seward, even though he was the owner of a lunatic asylum, I do believe that he still was not making a strong enough income or had enough options available to Lucy in the form of luxuries that she could have comfortably became the wife of a psychologist, if that makes sense. I also think at that time too, it was a newer science. This is the 1800s, so it was a bit of a newer science, psychology, that is. So some people might have thought he was a quack. And then unfortunately, Quincy was a cowboy. So he was a cowboy. Yes, I love Lucy as well. Oh, why must a man like that be made unhappy when there are lots of girls about who would worship the very ground he trod on? I know I would if I were free, only I don't want to be free. My dear, this quite upset me, and I feel I cannot write of happiness just at once, after telling you of it, and I don't wish to tell of the number 3 until it can be all happy. I agree. Ever your loving Lucy. P.S. Oh, about number 3. I needn't tell you of number 3, need I? Besides, it was all so confused. It seemed only for a moment from his coming into the room till both his arms were round me, and he was kissing me. Kissed 2 men in one day, Lucy. You trollop. I am very, very happy, and I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must only try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful to God for all his goodness to me in sending me such a lover, such a husband, and such a friend. Goodbye. Quincy was the Mary for adventure. Quincy was the, Quincy was Mary for a good time, you know. I don't know how else to put it, you know. I don't know. If it was me, I would have chosen Quincy. If it was my choice, I want to be honest. I don't think I could have. I could not personally have handled Dr. Seward's job. I think it would have been too demanding of him in the relationship, and I'm a bit too needy. So I think that would have been too much. Obviously, we'll talk about her actual husband shortly, or I don't think, did they ever get married? I think they were just engaged by the time she passed away. But anyway, I would have chosen Quincy if it was for me. You're right. Quincy could have been an oil man out in Texas. You know, he would have made a lot of money. I don't know. I don't know. So that would have been my choice, personally speaking. Who's with me? So anyway, Dr. Seward's diary kept in phonograph. Let's see. I always just assumed he was. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Was Quincy an oil man in Texas? I don't know. Okay. 25th May. Ebb tide in appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems of sufficient importance to be worth the doing. As I knew that the only cure for this sort of thing was work, I went amongst the patients. I picked out one who has afforded me a study of much interest. He is so quaint in his ideas and so unlike the normal lunatic that I am determined to understand him as well as I can. Today I seem to get nearer than ever before to the heart of his mystery. I questioned him more fully than I had ever done, with a view to making myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing it there was, I now see, something of cruelty. I seemed to wish to keep him to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with the patience as I would the mouth of hell. Very dramatic. Remember, under what circumstances would I not avoid the pit of hell? Omnia Romae venalia sunt. Hell has its price. If there be anything behind this instinct, it will be valuable to trace it afterwards accurately. So I had better commence to do so. Therefore, R.M. Renfield, aged 59, sanguine temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable, periods of gloom ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish. A possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish men, caution is as secure an armor for their foes as for themselves. What I think of on this point is, when self is the fixed point, the centripetal force is balanced with the centrifugal. When duty, a cause, etc. is the fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accident or a series of accidents can balance it. Well. Letter, Quincy P. Morris, to Honorable Arthur Holmwood. Arthur Holmwood. 25th May. My dear Art, we've told... Wait, this is Quincy P. Morris. Okay, I gotta do a Texas accent. My dear Art. No, I won't do it. We've told yarns by the campfire in the prairies and dressed one another's wounds after trying a landing at the Marquesas and drunk healths on the shore of Titicaca. Titicaca, is that how you say it? Okay. There are more yarns to be told and other wounds to be healed and another health to be drunk. Won't you let this be at my campfire tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know a certain lady is engaged to a certain dinner party and that you are free. There will only be one other, our old pal at the Korea, Jack Seward. He's coming, too, and we both want to mingle our weeps over the wine cup and to drink a health with all our hearts to the happiest man in the wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God has made and best worth winning. We promise you a hearty welcome and a loving greeting, and a health as true as your own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home if you drink too deep to a certain pair of eyes. Come. Wait, is that real? I thought Cornholio was made up. Titicaca is apparently a place. Titicaca is a place. I just feel silly saying it. What's that other one? There's another one that Tarzana is another one I always feel weird saying. And what is the other one? Hang on. What's that one? Oh, I'll think of it. There's another town that I'm always like, that sounds like nothing. I've missed a lot, but I'm here. Well, I'm glad you're here, and don't worry, this is recorded, so we will be putting this up on YouTube later. Yours as ever and always, Quincy P. Morris. Telegram from Arthur Holmwood to Quincy P. Morris. 26 May. Count me in every time. I hear messages which will make both your ears tingle. Art. Guys, we made it to chapter 6. I am so excited. Okay, so we did 4, 5. Yes, okay, so we're going to get, I think we'll get 3 chapters done tonight. Maybe 4 if we're very lucky. Okay. Let me have another sip of my tea real quick. Because it's getting to that temperature, you know? It's just getting to that temperature. Delish. All right. Chapter 6. 24th July, Whitby. Lucy met me at the station. Oh, this is Mina Murray's journal. Excuse me, sorry. Lucy met me at the station, looking sweeter and lovelier than ever, and we drove up to the house at the crescent in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. The little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across with high piers through which the view seems somehow further away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and it is so steep that when you are on the high land on either side, you look right across it, unless you are near enough to see down. The houses of the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed, and seem piled up upon one over the other anyhow, like the pictures we see of Nuremberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of part of Marmion, where the girl was built up in the wall. It is a most notable ruin, of immense size and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There is a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town there is another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard and full of tombstones. This, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town, and has a full view of the harbor, and all up the bay to where the headland called Kettleness stretches out into the sea. It descends so steeply over the harbor that part of the bank has fallen away, and some of the graves have been destroyed. Sorry, that was my foot. In one place of the stonework of the grave stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks with seats beside them through the churchyard, and people go and sit there all day long looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. Sidebar super quickly. In our kitchen, I'm sitting in the kitchen here today. In our kitchen here, I actually have a painting of Whitby. And you can see the abbey in the picture, and it looks down over the harbor. It's a beautiful, it looks like it's like... Darling in the chat, would you describe it as twilight or as dusk, I guess? It's got orange tones. It looks like the sun is setting behind the abbey. I don't think it was intentionally painted to be a Dracula painting, but it's dusk. Okay, cool. But it is, it's stunning. If you want to see a picture, and I'll put a picture of it up in my story after this, so you guys can see. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll make a post to show you. But it is essentially where, in this story, the Demeter sails into, and you can see where Dracula's home would be in Whitby Abbey. Yes, it would be dusk then. So yes, it's beautiful. It's like orange and yellow tones, and everything else is very dark. It's very, very pretty. So if you'd like to see a photo, let me know. I'll take a picture. We continue. I shall come and sit here often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now with my book on my knee and listening to the talk of 3 old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing all day but sit here and talk. That's what I would do if I was an old man as well. The harbor lies below, with, on the far side, one long granite wall stretching out into the sea, with a curve outwards at the end of it, and in the middle of which is a lighthouse. A heavy sea wall runs outside of it. On the near side, the sea wall makes an elbow crooked, inversely, and its end too has a lighthouse. Between the 2 piers above is a narrow opening into the harbor, which then suddenly widens. It is nice at high water, but when the tide is out, it shoals away to nothing, and there is merely the stream of the Esk running between banks of sand, with rocks here and there. It's funny. It sounds like an area. I grew up on Long Island in New York. It sounds very similar to how they're describing, and in the painting, you can see what she's talking about. The 2 split, where the sand would be between them. It's very interesting. Okay. Outside the harbor on this tide there rises for about half a mile a great reef, the sharp of which runs straight out from behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell which swings in bad weather and sends in a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He is coming this way. He is a funny old man. He must be awfully old, for his face is gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. Wow, it's a little bit judgmental, Mina. He tells me that he is nearly 100, and that he was a sailor in the Greenland fishing fleet when Waterloo was fought. He is, I am afraid, a very skeptical person, for when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said very brusquely, I wouldn't fash mysel' about them, miss. I wouldn't fash mysel'. Okay, about them, miss. Them things be all wore out. Mind, I don't say that they never was, but I do say that they wasn't in my time. They be all very well for comers and trippers and the like, but not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from York and Leeds that be, I don't know why I'm saying it with a southern accent, but it's like slang, so I apologize. I have to bring the book closer to actually read it correctly. Don't judge me. Them feet folks from York and Leeds that be always eatin' cured herrings and drinking tea and looking out to the boy. Cheap jet would creed aught. I wonder, Mazel, who'd be bothered telling lies to them, even the newspapers, which is full of fool talk. Wow. Yeah, he must be 100 years old to talk like that. Good gracious. I thought he would be a good person to learn interesting things from, so I asked him if he would mind telling me something about the whale fishing in the old days. He was just settling himself into to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he labored to get up and said, I must gang ageenwards home now, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like to be kept waitin' when the tea is ready, for it takes me time to crammel upon the grease. For there is many of 'em, and, miss, I lack belly timber sairly by the clock. I feel like there was a way for this to be written where it wasn't in slang that makes me have to do a southern accent. How do I read it with a British accent? Let's see, hang on. I must get... No, I feel... what accent would it be? Yes, I know. The accent I would have done. Yes, seriously. It's like reading it like this. Like, okay, don't mess up these words. Whatever accent that is. He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying as well as he could down the steps. The steps are a great feature of the place. They led from the town to the church. There are hundreds of them, I do not know how many, and they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must originally have had something to do with the abbey. I shall go home too. Lucy went out visiting with her mother, and as they were only duty calls, I did not go. They will be home by this. Let's see, I'm sorry I keep going in and out. I have a parent in hospice care. My mom is doing... Oh, no. I'm so sorry to hear that, darling. I appreciate you being here, but I definitely understand. No one's judging you at all, and I'm very, very sorry to hear that. 25th July. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had a most interesting talk with my old friend and the two others who always come and join. He is evidently the Sir Oracle of them, and I should think must have been in his time a most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything and downfaces everybody. He can't out-argue them, he bullies them, and then takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old man did not lose any time in coming sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed and did not contradict her, but gave me double share instead. I got him on the subject of the legends, and he went off at once into a sort of sermon. I must try to remember it and put it down. All right, here we go. Let's see. It be all fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and naught else. These bands and wafts and bogosts and barguests and bogles and all anent them is only fit to set barns and dizzy women a beldren. They be not but air blebs. They and all grims and signs and warnings be all invented by parsons and ilsome book bodies and tailway touters to skeer and scunner halflins, and to get folks to do something that they don't other incline to. It makes me arful to think o' them. Why, it's them that not content with printin' lies on paper and preachin' them out of pulpits, does want to be cuttin' them on the tombstins. Look here all round you in what airt you will. All them steens holdin' up their heads as well as they can out of their pride is a cant, simply tumblin' down with the weight o' the lies wrote on them. Here lies the body, or sacred to the memory, wrote on all of them, and yet in nigh half of them there bean't no bodies at all. And the memories of them bean't cared a pinch of snuff about, much less sacred. Lies all of them, nothing but lies of one kind or another. My gog, it'll be a square scoundrent at the day of judgment, when they come tumbling up in their death starks, all juped together and trying to drag their tombstones with them to prove how good they was. Some of them trimlin' and dithrin' with their hands that dozened and slippy from lyin' in the sea, that they can't even keep their grup of them. If you ever read this book, you'll know why this is very difficult to read. But anyway, I could see from them old fellows... I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air that the way in which he looked round for the approval of his cronies, that he was showing off, so I put in a word to keep him going. Hey, I almost got Irish. For those of you who know me, I actually have dual citizenship to Ireland, and my family is Irish. I also have, I did 3.5 years of college in Ireland. So it was easier to slip into an Irish accent just then than to read it like a English fisherman. I should have just done Irish the entire time. Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong. Yablins. There may be a poorish few not wrong, savin' where they might make out the people too good. For there be folk that do think a balm bowl be like the sea, if only it be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now look ye here. You come here as strangers, and you see this Kirk Garth. I nodded, for I thought it better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on, "And ye consate all these steens be aboon folk that be happed here, snod and snog." I assented again. "Then that be just where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay-beds that be toom as old Dunn's box on Friday night." He nudged one of his companions, and they all laughed. "And my gog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one, the aftest abaft, the beer bank. Read it." I went over and read, "Edward Spencelagh, Master Mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres, April 1854, age 30. When I came back, Mr. Swales went on, "Who brought him home, I wonder, to hap him here, murdered off the coast of the Andres? And you constated his body lay under. Why, I could name ye a dozen whose bodies lie in the Greenland seas above." He pointed northwards, "or where the currents may have drifted them. There may be steens about ye. Ye can, with your own eyes, read the small print of the lies from here. This Brathwaite Lowry, I knew his father, lost in the lively off Greenland in 20, or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same seas in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off Cape Farewell a year later, or John Rowlings, who his grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do ye think that all these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I have me antherems about it." He did say about it. "About it. I tell ye that when they got here, they'd be jomlin' and jostlin' one another the way they'd be oot to find and fight up on the ice like in the old days, when we'd be at one another from daylight to dark and trying to tie up our cuts by the aurora borealis." Good heavens! This was evidently local pleasantry, for the old man cackled over it, and his cronies joined in with gusto. "But," I said, "surely you were not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all these poor people or their spirits will have to take their tombstones with them on the day of judgment. Do you think that will be really necessary?" "Well, what else be they tombstones for? Answer me that, miss." "To please their relatives, I suppose." "To please their relatives, you suppose." This he said with intense scorn. "How will it pleasure their relatives to know that their lies is written over them, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies?" He pointed to a stone at our feet which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested close to the edge of the cliff. "Read the lies of that Thruffstein," he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and read, "Sacred to the memory of George Cannon, who died in the hope of a glorious resurrection on 29th July 1873, falling from the rocks of Kettleness. This tomb is erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow." Really, Mr. Swales, I don't see anything very funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely and somewhat severely. "Ye don't see aught funny, ha ha! But that's because ye ain't gone. The sorrowing mother was a hell-cat that hated him because he was a crude, a regular lamiter he was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide in order that she mightn't get an insurance she might put on his life. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket that day had for scaring the crows with. 'Twarn't for crows then, for it brought the clegs and the doups to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say, Maisel, that he hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd sure to be go to heaven, and he didn't want an addle where she was. Now isn't that Steen, at any rate? He hammered it with his sick and spoke a pack of lies. I won't it be Gabriel Keckle when Geordie comes panting up the grease, with the tombstone balanced on his hump, and asked to be took as evidence." Good heavens. I'm excited to be away from this chapter. I did not know what to say, but Lucy returned the conversation as she said, rising up, "Oh, why did you tell us of this? It is my favorite seat, and I cannot leave it, and now I must go find sitting over the grave of a suicide. That won't harm ye, my pretty, and it may make poor Geordie gladsome to have a trim lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt ye. Why, I've sat here off and on for nigh 20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't ye fash about them as lies under ye, or that doesn't lie there either. It'll be for ye to be getting scart when ye see the tombstones all run away with, and the place as bare as a stubble field. There's the clock, and I must gang. I must gang. I guess it's like, must be going. My service to ye, ladies." And off he hobbled. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took our hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. The same day I came up here alone, for I am very sad. There was no letter for me. I hope there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just struck 9. I see the lights scattered all over the town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, and sometimes singly. They run right up the Esk and die away in the curve of the valley. To my left the view is cut off by a black line of the roof of old houses next to the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the fields away behind me, and there is a clatter of a donkey's hoofs up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time. And further along the quay there is a Salvation Army meeting in a back street. Neither of the bands hears the other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is, and if he is thinking of me. I wish he were here. Dr. Seward's Diary, 5th June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting the more I get to understand him. He has certain qualities very largely developed: selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. I wish I could get at what it is the subject of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is I do not know. His redeeming quality is a love of animals, though indeed he has such curious turns in it that I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. His pets are of odd sorts. Just now his hobby is catching flies. He has a present, such a quantity that I have had myself to expostulate. To my astonishment, he did not break out into a fury, as I expected, but took the matter in simple seriousness. He thought for a moment, and then said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course, I said that would do. I must watch him. 18th June. He has turned his mind now to spiders, and has got several very big fellows in a box. He keeps feeding them his flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished, although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from outside his room. This man and his flies. 1st July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear out some of them at all events. He cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before reduction. He disgusted me much with him. Wait, hang on 1 second. Yes, okay. He disgusted me much while with him. Sorry, it's a little dark in here, so I keep getting tripped up on my words. Please excuse me. For when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it, held it exultantly for a few moments between his finger and thumb, and before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was a very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This gave me an idea of the rudiment of one. I must watch how he gets rid of his spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he is always jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches, and then the totals added in batches again, as though he were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. Lord of the Flies is right. 8th July. There is a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It will be a whole idea soon, and then, oh, unconscious celebration, you will have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days so that I might notice if there were any changes. Things remain as they were, except that he has parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He has managed to get a sparrow, and has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings in flies by tempting them with his food. 19th July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor, and as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said, with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, a kitten, a nice little sleek, playful kitten, that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity, but I did not care for his pretty family of tame sparrows should they be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and spiders. So I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh, yes, I would like a cat. I only asked for a kitten lest you should refuse me a cat. No one would refuse me a kitten, would they?" I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it, for there was a sudden, fierce, sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him with his present craving and see how it will work out. Then I shall know more. 10 p.m. I have visited him again, and found him sitting in a corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended upon it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word, and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning early. 20th July. Visiting Renfield very early before the attendant went in rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he had saved, in the window, and was manifestly beginning his fly-catching again, and beginning it cheerfully and with a good grace. I looked around for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied, without turning round, that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there were anything odd about him during the day. 11 a.m. The attendant has just been to see me to say that Renfield has been very sick and has been disgorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, doctor, he said, that he has eaten his birds and that he just took and ate them raw. He has disgorged a whole lot of feathers. That's atrocious. 11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought that has been buzzing around my brain lately is complete, and my theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him, and call him a zoophagous, or life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve it in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider, and many spiders to one bird, and then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would almost be worthwhile to complete the experiment. It might be done if there were only a sufficient cause. He would have eaten the cat. He would have eaten the cat. Men sneered at vivisection and yet looked at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secret of one such mind? Did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic? I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Burden Sanderson's physiology or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing. If only there were a sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale with me, for may not I, too, be of an exceptional brain congenitally? How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder at how many lives he values a man, or if at only one. He has closed the account most accurately and today begun a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it will be until the great recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours, but I must only wait on hopeless and work. Work, work. If only could have a strong a cause as my poor mad friend there, a good, unselfish cause to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Let's see. Okay, cool. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have 4 pages left. Mina Murray's Journal, 26th July. I am anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. And there is also something that the shorthand symbols that make it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time, and was very concerned, but yesterday dear Mr. Hawkins, who is always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had just been received. It is only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says that he is just starting for home. That is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westerna has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs, and then get suddenly wakened and fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Poor dear, she is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she is already planning out her dresses and and how her house is to be arranged. The H looked strikingly like a bee just then. I sympathize with her, for I do the same, only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Honourable Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up with here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well. And I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up in the seat on the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. 27th July. No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him, though why should I do not know. But I do wish that he would write, if it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving around the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but still the anxiety and the perpetually being wakened is beginning to tell on me, and I am getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God, Lucy's health keeps up. For now. Mr. Holmwood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost that anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. 3rd August. Another week gone, and no news from Jonathan. Not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I look at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, and yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. 6th August. Another 3 days, and no news. This suspense is getting dreadful. If I only knew where to write to, or where to go, I should feel easier. But no one has heard a word of Jonathan since that last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but it is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that we are in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a grey day, and the sun is, as I write, hidden in thick clouds high over Kettleness. Everything is grey except the green grass, which seems like emerald amongst it. Grey earthy rock, grey clouds tinged with the sunburst at the far edge, hang over the grey sea into which the sand points stretch like grey fingers. The sea is tumbling in over the shallows and the sandy flats with a roar, muffled in the sea mist drifting inland. Hi, Seth, I love you so much. The horizon is lost in a grey mist. All its vastness, the clouds are piled up like giant rocks, and there is a brool over the sea that sounds like some presage of doom. Dark figures are on the beach here and there, sometimes half shrouded in the mist, and seem men like trees walking. The fishing boats are racing for home. The rise and dip in the ground swell as they sweep into the harbor, bending to the scuppers. Here comes old Mr. Swales. He is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat that he wants to talk. I have been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, so I took his poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I'm afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead, and such like for weeks past, but I didn't mean them. And I want ye to remember that when I'm gone, we old folks that be daffled with one foot abaft the crook-hole don't altogether like to think of it. And we don't want to feel scart of it, and that's why I've took to making light of it, so that I'd cheer up my own heart a bit. But, Lord love you, miss, I ain't afraid of dying, not a bit, only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be old, and 100 years is too much for any man to expect, and I'm so nigh it that the old man is already whetting his scythe. You see, I can't get out of the habit of caffing about it all at once. The chaffs will wag as they used to be. Some day soon the angel of death will sound the trumpet for me. But don't ye dole and greet my dearie, for he saw that I was crying. If he should come this very night, I'd not refuse to answer his call.
For life be, after all, only a waiting for something else than be what we're doing, and death be all that we can rightly depend on. But I'm content, for it's comin' to me, my dearie, and comin' quick. It may be comin' while we be lookin' and wonderin'. Maybe it's in the wind out over the sea that's bringin' with its loss and wreck and sore distress and sad hearts. Look, look, he cried suddenly. There's something in that wind and in the host beyond that sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air, I feel it comin'. Lord, make me answer cheerful when my call comes. He held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he were praying. After a few minutes' silence, he got up, shook hands with me, and blessed me, and said goodbye, and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when the Coast Guard came along with the spyglass under his arm. He stopped to talk with me, as he always does, but all the time kept looking at a strange ship. I can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by the looks of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or to put it in here. Look there. Again, she is steered mightily Wait, hang on one second. A typo again. She is steered mightily strangely. No, it should be she is steered mighty strangely, correct? I would think. For she doesn't mind the hand on the wheel, changes about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before the time tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to make a note of this and check my other books and see if there is a typo here too. What's up with this modern book? There has been several typos so far that I'm like, I don't think that's what it's supposed to say. Okay, well, I'll check that one after and see. All right, so we're going to stop here for chapter 7 this evening, and we finished at 10 on the nose with the reading. I'm very, very happy with that. So, I'm very happy that we are past the old man talking in his slang. Unfortunately, that's my least favorite part of the book. I think the first time I read this book, I was in probably the 6th or 7th grade, which seems ridiculous now that I'm older, that I was reading a story like this. But that was my least favorite part when I was a child. So thank you. I appreciate it. My copy said mighty. Okay, so it's supposed to be mighty then. So my book says mightly. Who did this one? Let me see. I want to see what publishing house this one is. Who published this? Rhodes? Let's see. Rhodes Classic Edition, Rhodes Publishing. 1922 Dame Street, Dublin to Ireland. Oh, sorry folks. You got this one wrong here. Yeah, this one has a couple of typos. Just wait till we get to the train part towards the, oh my God, I know, you're right. Some of the verbiage in this, while it is outdated, obviously, some of the slang that is used, like, it makes my brain go, like, I don't know how to read it. So thank you for being patient with me while we were reading that one. Hey, did you see that they're doing more Buffy? I did. Are they doing, I think it's like an audiobook? Is it an actual, read it at 11, I'll never forget it, and it's beautiful. I agree. I think I will, okay, let's see. I think I was in, let's see, if 4th grade I was turning 10 in 4th grade. 5th grade I was 11. I think I read it at 12 for the first time then, in 6th grade. And I, like, listen, I loved it, but reading those, like, that whole section with the old man, I was just like, oh, I don't know what it's saying, but Sterling Publishing for my Barnes & Noble copy. Okay, so do you know what's funny? I think I actually got that copy when I lived in Ireland. I'm almost certain. That's funny. But anyway, yeah, so again, discrepancies in the writing of the book. So not all Draculas are published equally, I have come to realize. But I did one of my oldest copies of Dracula I got at the Charlie Burns, is it called a library? I forget what it's called. The book, I think it's Charlie Burns bookstore in Galway, Ireland. I got it for €5. So it was a steal to say the least. He used to Charlie Burns bookstore in Galway. If it's, I think it's still there. I'm almost certain. He used to be able to give you a milk crate, and he would tell you to fill it up basically, and he would charge you per milk crate, and it was very, very affordable. It was usually like 15-20 quid, if you will, which comes out to about $25 to $30 for a milk crate of antique books. It was one of the best things I ever experienced. Was living over there and just being able to go through books like that. But I was a big, big fan. Yes, we're currently reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what vampire news I have. Coming up this week, there are 2 vampire films that I know of that are coming out. So I will be talking about those 2 films soon. One is a Dracula film. I believe it is French. And the other is called Sinners, which I'm very excited to talk about. Let's see, my friend has the first edition, the Yellow Book. I would love to get my hands on a first edition Yellow Book. The last time I looked at it, it was about $8,000. So that's a little bit outside of my pocketbook budget. So I don't know when or if I will ever get my hands on one when I become a multi-millionaire. Maybe, but doubtful that will ever happen. Yes, I believe I had 3 milk crates. I believe I had 3 while living over there, full of books. Sinners does look very good. I'm going to make a whole video about it. I'm so excited for it. Michael B. Jordan's in it. I'm going to do like a long form video. I'll probably put it up on YouTube. As I can, here's the thing for those of you watching here and you're like, why don't you put more long form videos on Instagram? The problem is when you record up to 3 minutes, you can share it as a reel. If it's over 3 minutes, you can still post it, but it will not be viewable by anyone that isn't following you. And the problem with that is, while I love everyone who follows me, I love you all so much. My views are crapola. So sometimes you want it to be viewed by people who are not following you because it's like, oh, it's getting viewed by like outside of your reach. So I have resorted to just posting it on YouTube. I still post obviously on TikTok too, because you can post up to 10 minutes on there. But YouTube has been really like where I've been prioritizing the long form because we don't know when the clock app is going to go away. And apparently it's in about less than 90 days up now. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows who's over there. For those of you who know, like TikTok is really where I kind of started all this. So I've been like trying to figure out where to go next. So YouTube is really where I've been trying to put the long form stuff. So that's why I'll show up to a certain point, come to a good stopping, like cut point on, the longer videos on here. And then I'm just like, if you want to watch the full thing, go to YouTube. So, my Sinners, video is going to be on there, and on here too, just a snippet of it. But I believe that comes out I want to say it was April 25th is what I saw the release date was. So I'll talk about that this week. I would also like to talk about, the other Dracula film that's coming out. It's a French one. I don't think it's called Dracula. It's called something else. I'll let you guys know. I'll let you know. I have a first edition of Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Wow, that's super cool. That's very, very cool. Let's see. I'm still stuck on Nosferatu. That movie has stolen all the free space in my brain. Oh my goodness. I keep thinking about, I try to do the voice. My Dominic, he's on here. Yeah, he does it very, very well. And it makes me laugh every time he does it. There's a lot of TikTok edits of it. And people doing the voice. And oh my God, I love that film so much. I understand why people didn't like it. I get it. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm speaking very biasly for a second. I love historical pieces. Okay. I love it. I will watch a film, like a historical fiction film any day of the week. I'm a huge fan. Put that on top of the fact that it's Nosferatu, which the history of Dracula and Nosferatu, both of those things, I'm like such a dork for. the fact that Nosferatu came out in like a new version came out in our lifetime during like the precipice of like, I don't know, like recession art is just like, wow, like we needed this. So that already unbiased, I already enjoy it. And also I just really enjoyed the casting. I really, really enjoyed the casting. And I love Robert Eggers. So Robert Eggers, like I haven't watched The Northman yet. If you've seen it, let me know. Did you like The Northman? Let me know in the chat. But The Witch, I have a tattoo. Like literally, I got a tattoo of Black Phillip because I loved Robert Eggers' film that much. I was blown away when I first saw it. I always talk about it on here. I was blown away when I saw The Witch. So many people said it was boring and slow, and I was like, no, I loved it. It read like I was reading a book. Like it was like it. Oh my gosh, it was very immersive. I really enjoyed it. I also really enjoyed The Lighthouse. I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was really good. You know, let's see. I felt it was a faithful recreation and only expanded a tiny bit. Okay. It's nowhere near as good as his three others, but it's decent. Northman is a little different from his other stuff. It's still great. Okay. I'm liking what everybody's saying. Okay. So I'm not going to go into it expecting like I'm not going to be blown away, but I can go into it expecting to be a good Robert Eggers film is what you're saying. Okay. I have friends who love it and others who hate it. I can see both sides. Okay. I think I wanted a little more romance, but then again, it was good. Okay. All right. I can accept that. I rented Northman for the library. I just haven't watched it yet. When you watch it, please let me know. Princess, I also love The Witch. You and me. You know what? I can see you and I are very aligned in what we like, our tastes in film. I like this. I like this a lot. All right, let's see. I have a degree in history with a focus on witchcraft, and the witchcraft in The Witch is historically accurate to the belief of the... I love to hear that. I knew it. I could feel it in my bones. I was like, this is it. If I was a witch during this time, this would have been me. Let's see. I almost convinced my boyfriend to see Nosferatu, but his friend said it was... Oh, I think let's see. I need to rewatch it without the public. Yeah, me too. Well, my intention is this month, allegedly in February. They said it should be coming out on physical media, so like Blu-ray, DVD, that kind of stuff. I will be purchasing it. I will be watching it, and it will be my most watched Blu-ray DVD. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the language is still lovely in Northman. It's an adaptation of Hamlet. Ah, there we go. See, I know nothing about it. It really flew under my radar. Most in part because I just think that I don't know what I thought it was. I also think when it came out, I didn't put two and two together. It was a Robert Eggers film. You know what I mean? Let's see. Nosferatu movie was very good. Eggers did a marvelous job. I agree. I especially like the way the film was made. I agree. Yes, The Northman was definitely good, but between that and The Witch all day. Okay. Because who doesn't want to live deliciously? You're right. I agree. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Let's see. I have questions that popped up here. I'm not going to read those. Okay. I 100% bought it on iTunes so I could watch it every day if wanted. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Let's see. I'm wondering about Eggers' new film, Werewolf. That is one I will definitely be seeing in theaters. In my opinion, I think that I'm not really a big werewolf guy. That's sad to say. I like when, you know what? Now that I think about it, the Wolfman film with Anthony Hopkins in it was excellent. I remember seeing that in theaters and I loved that one. That had a very similar vibe, in my opinion, to the recent Nosferatu film. Not like film standard quality wise, but like it just like storyline wise, and the acting, you know. Let's see. The Witch was too good. Yes, I agree. Let's see. How do you think Nosferatu compares to its previous iterations of Dracula as a character? That's a great question. I think that okay, when
Bela Lugosi's Dracula came out, it was intended to be. First off, it was released on Valentine's Day. It was intended to be a romance. Like the I forget how they phrased it, but it was like the most bizarre romance of the time. I think that Robert Eggers' Nosferatu was an iteration that really dove into how grotesque monsters could and should be, especially because, I don't know, it like really stepped out of like the romantification of vampires, if that makes sense, even though a lot of people still romanticized Nosferatu. But in my opinion, I think it was a more accurate to what a vampire truly would be. And it did even stray into the more grotesque as compared to Dracula, the novel, to what I always pictured what Dracula would look like. Because ultimately, when I first read Dracula, I didn't picture him to be this like beautiful, stunning, gorgeous bombshell of a man. I did picture him to be like old and decrepit. And then even when he was like younger, I pictured him to still be kind of like ominous and haunting and a little off-putting, but like in like a sexy way, So I think that this was truly like I said in my review, I thought it was a monster film, and some people wanted that and some people didn't. I wanted a monster film. I wanted him to be disgusting and decrepit, and I wanted him to look more like he was, like a deceased Transylvanian corpse reanimated. So I think that that's like the main difference, is that this didn't feel like it was pandering to like the romanticization of vampires, if that makes sense. Let's see. Eggers is making a medieval movie. Oh my God. I cannot wait. I can't wait for that. I love anything medieval. What was the one? I was disappointed by, is it called The Green Knight? Is that the one? Do you know what I'm talking about? I wanted that to be good. Is it The Green Knight? It is. Okay. I can hear Dominic in the other room. I wanted that to be better than it was. Again, because it's kind of like medieval-esque, it's in the vein of it. I think that there needs to be more medieval films that come out, especially like horror. Yeah, I wanted The Green Knight to be better. There were parts of it I did enjoy, but I don't know, something about it just felt a little bit hollow storyline-wise, so I wasn't like crazy about it. I also think that it really, again, was swept under the rug by other films that came out during that time. Let's see. Arthurian horror whimsy. That is what a wonderful way to describe that film. You're right, 100%. I just ran between two fires and I am fiending for medieval horror. I don't blame you. I definitely agree. Maybe I'll give The Green Knight another opportunity. I think I need to watch it in a different frame of mind. Sometimes when I watch previews of films, I go into it with a slight bias, and I think I should not have watched the trailer before watching it. I think I would have enjoyed it more. I think that was my problem with that film. I'll try it again. Specifically because you described it as Arthurian horror whimsy. That's what a wonderful way to describe that. I love that, actually. Let's see. Please, no more Twilight movies. We need scary vampire films. Yeah, I do agree. It's a mark of the times when horror movies get good, because horror is usually a metaphor for the goings-ons of life and political climate and like disease, famine, things like that. So the more horror music that comes out, the more usually like the better the music is that's coming out. Like, we're going to get a lot of punk albums, a lot of metal albums right now. We're going to get a lot of really good rap albums and things like that. It's just like a mark of the times, so hopefully we're in a renaissance of music and film now. So that would be great. Let's see. I can't believe people's obsession with that series still. For me personally, Twilight is a nostalgia series. I recently got Dominic to watch it for the first time, and once he watched it, he understood why I enjoyed it. In my opinion, the best film, the best one of the series it goes like this. It's like New Moon, Eclipse, Twilight, Breaking Dawn 1, then Breaking Dawn 2. The last Breaking Dawn's ooh, yikes, those were really not good. But I loved New Moon and Eclipse. I really did. I like the books too. Those are my favorite books of the series too. Let's see. What do you think of Nosferatu in relation to that? I thought it was an interesting new feminist take with Ellen's character. I think that's a good opinion too. I thought that it really spoke to, because I listened to Lily Rose Depp's interviews about her opinion on Helen and how, like she really felt that she was like a heroine in the movie. And I agree. She was, at the end of the day, she became the hero. I think that it really just kind of spoke to how sometimes women feel that they have to present a certain way and cannot indulge in the things that they truly desire, for the sake of feeling accepted within a marriage or societal norms, and like that darker side of yourself. So I thought it was like a really beautiful example, tragic, like a melancholic would probably be the best way to describe it, example of like that, the discourse that sometimes women feel when it comes to like who they want to indulge themselves in being true to themselves, as opposed to what they are expected to be, and what they, want to present to be for the sake of like amicability within society. So very interesting. Let's see. I love Twilight as a comic. Yes. Sometimes when it comes to Twilight, I do sometimes tell people like, you need to look at it. Like if you've read Midnight Sun, which is from Edward's perspective, he is a scary, scary character. It is really a horror film at the end of the day. All of those books. I think because a lot of us watched it when we were in like our early teens. Let's see, Lily Rose blew me away, and yeah, I thought her performance was really good too. But a lot of us watched Twilight in our early teens, and I think that we didn't really understand at the time the manipulation that was going on Edward's side, as well as the fact that I really think at the end of the day, Bella was truly more in love with the idea of eternal life than anything else. Like when she realized that he was leaving and she was missing out on the potential of that, I don't know if it was that she was missing out on the potential of love or the potential of eternal life. And I think that her mental health really, as I've gotten older, I realized like her mental health was really not good. Really, really not good. And I think that, in Midnight Sun, Edward had talked about, he knew based off of what Alice had seen about Bella that she would try to unalive herself essentially if he left, and he still did it because he didn't think that she would do it. And look what happened, look what happened. So I don't know. It's it's messed up when you think about it, but obviously it was written to be like a teenage love story, Meh. Let's see, have you ever seen Riff Track / Mystery Science Theater? No, I have not. Is this something you would recommend? Because I will write it down and I will watch it. Let's see. I wish that was more intentional in the story of Twilight. Bella's interest in eternal life. Although I'm speaking movie-wise, I need to read. Oh, yes. Something to think about, yeah. Twilight films are... Oh my God, that's so funny. I've never seen that. That's really funny. Yeah, I think that I think what it came down to is I think her realizing that she was losing out on the potential of eternal life was more detrimental to her, and like having a life, I don't know if I was wondering if it was more of a selfish thing than it was about losing love. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to trust the recommendation. I will definitely check that out then. Yeah, because I've never seen that. But yeah, so that's my opinions on Twilight. As I've gotten older, I realized that it was more of a horrific story than probably, let's see, best MS Man as the Hands of Fate. All right, cool. I'll check it out. Thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely check it out after this. But I won't keep you guys much longer. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I love chit-chatting with you guys. hopefully this will start building up again. I'm excited that we're doing this again on Monday nights. Um, join us. So, let's see. Have you seen Del Toro's Frankenstein? Do you think you might read Frankenstein sometimes? I mean, listen. Yes, no, actually, I didn't see Del Toro's Frankenstein. Now that I think about it, but if you are interested in me reading Frankenstein, that is a story that I could read theoretically and also record too. Again, due to how old it is. So if that's something you guys would like, I don't mind doing that too. That's totally fine. But to conclude this evening, thank you so much for being here this evening. I love you guys very, very much. Thank you so much to my fiance for also making new art for Vampire Book Club. So big round of applause for Dominic. We love him. We will be probably putting that on t-shirts again at some point in the future. But we will be back next Monday. We will start again on I think we will be starting chapter 7 next week. Okay, so we'll try to do 7 through 9, same time as always. For anybody who joined and you missed the beginning, this will be up on YouTube. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. And I'll have some fun, interesting videos for you guys this week to kind of lighten the mood a little bit with the state of the world. So again, love you guys. So thanks for being here. I hope you'll have a wonderful night. This is me tucking you in. Okay, I will see you all next time. Bye bye.